Today on Absolute Anthem, we're going to be taking a look at some new gameplay and information for Fort Tarsus, courtesy of IGN's first coverage of Anthem for the month of January. Now, if you're looking to go into this game like super blind and you don't want to hear anything about any character, any bit of story development, any background for any character, you should walk away right now because there's a few spoilers in the discussion we're going to have today. For everyone else, let's take a look at Fort Tarsus, which continues to be growing and expanding as a relatively decent hub world. I like the size we're seeing here now that we've seen beyond those big doors. There's a couple other environments there on top of the ones we've already seen surrounding the forge, the vendor section, our vault. We haven't seen the Strider Bay yet. If that's actually an environment we'll be able to interact with, we're not sure, but they have mentioned it in the past. We get to see the bar area too, where we'll be able to interact with other characters, potentially build some more relationships, gain access to new quests. It's just a decent sized hub world. I like where they're going with it. I like the vibes I'm getting there. A little bit of Astera, sort of Monster Hunter World vibes in there for me, except of course we can actually interact with characters and build those relationships and have those dialogue choices. We can also use them as vendors and even gain access to new quests for them. So I'm digging where it's going. Probably my favorite thing though about this video was them showcasing how Fort Tarsus can change, how it will change and grow and expand and improve over time. We knew this was a thing, but we didn't really know how they were doing it. And outside of it just getting cleaned up and, the shops opening up and more characters walking around, more people actually visiting the shops, we also have to deal with problems, growing pains, if you will. And one that was demonstrated was a flooding problem that developed near the Cipher Bay within the walls of Fort Tarsus. This flooding problem could actually lead to the destruction of the Cipher Bays, which of course would be a bad thing because we need the ciphers to communicate and provide intel and coordination for the freelancers out in the open field. That to me is like a really nice touch. If you're going to give us this hub world and say, oh, it's going to grow and get nicer, try and make it go beyond superficial, beyond just, oh, it looks nicer now. There's more people walking around with. We got a couple characters we can interact with that we couldn't before. How else can you sort of ground the player to what's happening with Fort Tarsus as it expands and as it changes? This is a great way to do that, giving us an actual quest that we'll have to deal with. Oh, there's flooding. The Cipher Base could get ruined. We've got to tackle that. I hope we see a lot more of that because I like what that does. I like the potential of something like that beyond just, oh, I came back to Fort Tarsus and it looks nicer now. It's a smart little piece of storytelling and player interaction there that hopefully we see a lot more of. Moving on, we got our first look at alliances, which are essentially Anthem's answer to clans. You can join an alliance, at which point you'll be able to contribute to an XP pool that has multiple tiers every single week. So hopefully this will give you and your friends a reason to play together, something to sort of chase that also rewards you. We also got to take a look at daily trials, weekly trials, and monthly trials, which are all, as you can imagine, daily, weekly, and monthly challenges. The weekly ones included, killing some scars, completing some world events, and again, we did not see rewards for those, but happy to see those. I feel like it's kind of mandatory, but the number of games that have launched without those sort of things is really impressively not so good. So it's good to see BioWare saying, yeah, you need those sorts of things. If we're going to call our game a live service and something you can play, for potentially 100 plus hours, then yeah, we need to have things for people to come back to and ways in which they can earn rewards for participating on a daily, weekly, and monthly scale. I like that. I like where they're going with that. We also get to take a look at some codex entries and some sort of environmental storytelling. So beyond just audio logs, there's actually some audio stories, including this fun little sort of, radio comic type deal with the Crimson Lancer. I like seeing stuff like that. Reminds me a lot of the audio logs and the audio stories we could pick up in Fallout. That's definitely a big plus for me. Now, in terms of story bits, we meet a couple new characters, Prospero, Commander Vul, and Zoe. In the case of Prospero, he's actually tied directly into gameplay because he is an individual in this case who's sending us on a quest to reactivate the game's forge, which is in turn going to allow us to craft things and also to modify our javelins cosmetically. And that's sort of his kind of motto, if you will, as we interact with him as the freelancer. Like, you can't just go out into the field looking all humdrum. You gotta spice things up, man. You gotta have some personal representation on your javelin. So he's an individual who's going to give us access to cosmetics, which is cool. It's cool to see an actual vendor for that. We know that we'll be able to buy things with in-game currency when it comes to cosmetics, but also an individual who's looking to give us quest to earn those cosmetics as well. We don't have any confirmation on, exactly what we'll be able to do to unlock cosmetics. We do know that there is an in-game currency called coin, and we'll be able to buy some of those cosmetics, but I hope there's also opportunities to actually complete quest to gain access to cosmetics. I'm all for like the, oh, you just gotta, you gotta essentially earn some coin, and you earn enough coin, you can buy a cosmetic. But if we can supplement that with actual quests, that's a really big positive, because cosmetics do matter, and people like changing the appearance of their in-game character. If that's tied to quests, that is a very good thing in my opinion. We'll see how the cookie crumbles on that one. Now, when we talk about Zoe, we actually get a little bit of her background story. She is currently a mechanic at the forge within the walls of Fort Tarsus. She's the one taking care of your freelancers, but she was originally headed for Anthem when their Strider was destroyed by a cataclysm, and she ended up in Fort Tarsus. Now, Anthem is actually the birthplace of our very own Faye Naveen, the Cypher, who's going to be a member of our crew. We don't know that much about that location, but it comes across as sort of a more high-end, maybe even capital city type location in the world of Anthem. Nonetheless, Zoe ended up here in Fort Tarsus, found her way as a mechanic, and ended up having a child. So we got a decent chunk of her background story from just that quick character interaction. We also get to interact with Commander Vul. He is the commander of the Sentinels. They are essentially the guard, the police force, the protective force of Fort Tarsus. They don't go beyond the walls of Fort Tarsus. They hold the line that is Fort Tarsus. They actually patrol along the wall itself, keeping an eye out for incoming threats. And in this case, we start to see the issue the freelancers have with building back up that reputation. Even Prospero says, my shop is dead. I don't even have the forge up and running. There's no reason to. Freelancers are not even really a thing anymore. No one cares. And so now you're starting to interact with these characters like Zoe, like Bryn, like Commander Vul, and starting to sort of rebuild that reputation to say, hey, we can do things. We can pull our own weight as people living within the walls of Fort Tarsus. And that's kind of going to be our main arc as a player as the game starts off. So, people aren't really ready to trust the freelancers. They don't think they're consistent. They don't think they're reliable, and you're out to prove that. So, yeah, pretty nice look at Fort Tarsus and bits and pieces of the story. Dialogue was a little rough here and there, but all in all, I've had a positive, I think, response to it. I mean, BioWare, regardless of what BioWare it was and who was there, has never really been known for flawless dialogue execution. But nonetheless, they've always managed to deliver characters that I think we can connect to. Even in Andromeda for me, which a game that has its ups and downs that I love bits of and that I don't like bits of, still had a lot of great characters like PB that I just loved building relationships with. So hopefully they can still strike that same character development gold that they've done in the past with other games here inside of Anthem. Time will tell on that one. Hopefully we'll get a good taste of that inside of the demo. So if you're still unsure, the demo is obviously a great opportunity to experience Anthem for yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any thoughts of your own on this new information, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. Huge heads up, I'm going to announce this a couple more times throughout the week, but I will be streaming all this week. Then next week, Tuesday, I will be out of town. I'm going to visit some family. I will be back just in time for the Anthem VIP demo on Friday, and we'll be definitely checking that out throughout the course of the weekend, doing some stream stuff, doing some YouTube content for it. So again, I will be gone Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then coming home Friday to dive into that Anthem demo. So you just won't see any streams from me, and you probably won't hear much from me, as I'm going to be visiting some family for some important stuff, and then I'll be back home and ready to rock and roll. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, be awesome to one another, because at the end of the day, it's all we got.
The most important task of your